came to win, I don't mean to offend. The greatest on the mic, mightiest with the pen. Losing never been a choice, but a line is the same. Ascending, word bending, birds, birthed in the gym. Akin to the best, never aiming for less. Opposition so foul, got me calling for rest. Who's next to get bested? Mind, soul, and flesh is antithesis of mess. It's the pressure so clean. Hold on, you better catch a God, throw him blessings. Dreams manifest, did you get what I mean? God always had a plan, he created for me.
Let's try that again. Welcome back again. You know, he was again because we were gone and you're still here. You gotta love that.
We're both here now.
I got the recording button pushed this time. It took me about 4 presses to get it to actually record, but
it's working.
I have a friend that always says technology is great when it works, but when it doesn't, it kind of sucks. But it's great that you're all here, Michelle, that you're here, and I'm here for another episode of Knight&Craig. We're talking about the series that we're in, Family Matters. Michelle, catch us up from last time. Where are we in this series so folks can know?
I mean, I know we talked about it being a series, but we really didn't have we had some ideas. I don't want to sound like we're unprepared or anything like that. I don't think that we could have anticipated how deep we got in the last 2 series, because in the last 2 episodes, because we left off talking about permission and access to relationships, and ended on a powerful note around relationships change. And that's what we're picking up today. Relationships change, and that's okay. That's okay. So that's where we are. This is what we're talking about today. So let's see where it goes and how far we get today, and determine if we need a episode 4 in this series, or if we, I don't know how far we go with this, but the intent is just to definitely start that healing process, continue the healing process for ourselves, and allow other people to really join in on that healing journey with their families and the issues that we have. So,
and I love that relationships change, and that's okay, because I've been finding that to be a big humongous, like, I don't know, Mount Kilimanjaro size thing that's been going on in my life for the last few years, but really specifically I think over the last year, when I noticed it when Sandy died and her life insurance kicked in, there was some change in relationships because people thought they were going to be able to benefit on what they thought we had based on her insurance. And then when my father died, there were some issues and some changes in some relationships then that were related to our family, and it was just really uncomfortable. And then we keep moving forward, finding some relationships just seem to change. I don't know if it's just because it's that time and they needed to change, but I'm just now getting to the point where I can say, you know what? That's okay, Kashel. I was bitter about some of these changes over the last decade because I'm a creature of habit where I like things to remain the same. But I found the only thing in my life that had been constant has been change.
Change, yeah. And unfortunately, change not of your own doing,
Right.
I got a different hairstyle, you're rocking, your new collective. Yeah, you do from before, right? You had the little blonde fro at one point, you were changing it up, we get tattoos, or we're expressing ourselves in different ways and on the outward, so people can recognize the change, but then what's going on the inside is also changing. And sometimes people don't see that, or we're not showing that as readily and as vulnerable. And I think that's a powerful point that you bring up, is that it could be change in a way that is very natural, or the physical loss, but sometimes it's a necessary change that maybe we've waited too long in a relationship, and it's starting to rot on the vine, because who we thought was with us or for us may still be with us or for us in their own way, but it may not be the way that's serving or best for us to receive that. And so then we're changing again to institute some boundaries, or changing again to say, hey, I was listening to Tyler Perry this morning, and it was a message that came up on my feed, and he was talking about that people are in your lives for a reason or a season, and
Mm,
how when you're skyrocketing or when a rocket is taken off and the booster falls off, sometimes that booster served a purpose. And so I
mm,
started thinking about the friendships or the people in our lives that serve a purpose
yeah,
in a particular season, but aren't meant to go with us to that mountaintop, or that aren't meant to stay with us once we make it to a certain place. They're not ready, and we have to accept that.
that's such a good point because I've been grieving the loss of some friendships over the
Hmm.
year or more because there's just some people that I thought, oh, they're ride or die folks. They've been with me through some tough times, but as you're mentioning here with Tyler Perry's example too, because they're not supposed to be with us all the time. And
Hmm.
even in suffering a loss of my wife and then my mother, and then, of course, my
Hmm.
mother-in-law, and then
Hmm.
now my father, I know that people are going to die. So I know the involuntary losses are ones that you just, just have to suck it up and keep it
Yeah.
moving. But the ones with relationships that you just think, hey, you know what we've been through. We've been through some dark times, and
Hmm.
all of a sudden you're just not going to be there anymore. Like, what the hell? But those are choices that I think are also involuntary because those
Hmm.
individuals make choices to change. We make choices to change. And sometimes we just are moving in different directions in our lives. And that's okay. I think in my mind, I had this perfect picture of how life would be with the folks that were down with me from the start when I was broke down and beat down, and we all
Hmm.
make it like you said, to the next level or the promised land, wherever that situation needs to be. We would all
Right.
be on the other side together, chilling and having a good time. But
Hmm.
I think as I'm discovering and we're mentioning here, maybe we just don't grow like we're supposed to grow if we've got
Hmm.
the same fruit that's been, like you mentioned, on that vine for too long. The fruit is meant to be taken off and eaten and used. And people, hmm, sometimes people are actually fruit, and relationships are actually fruit from our tree.
Mm.
So something that we actually
Hmm.
need to leave. And I didn't understand that until you said it just right now.
Oh, gosh, we do this all the time. So you're talking about, I heard Erica Badu, "Can't wanna eat from my apple tree," "And if you
Yeah.
don't wanna go down with me." And so, people change and they forget to tell you.
Yeah.
And that's a
Oof.
quote from an anonymous person that I heard many, many years ago. In addition to that tree bearing fruit, we can go a ton of different ways with that. Where I wanna go is there are seasons,
Yeah.
right? With planting, with harvesting, with eating, with
Yeah.
replanting, and the fruit tree is always going to yield the fruit that it's intended to yield, as
Mhm.
long as that cycle
Mhm.
continues to happen. But
Sure.
when it dies on the vine, sometimes it has a potential to rot the other fruit that is connected
Mm.
to that same vine or that same branch or what have you. So now you have a tree that's yielding the fruit that it's supposed to bear. It's flourishing, but that one piece that you refuse to take off of the vine now starts becoming a toxin and
Mm.
and impacting the other fruit, the other relationships. And
Yeah.
sometimes we see that way too late. We see that way too late. We notice the signs of the browning. We notice the changing of the season. It's now, and maybe if we were able to pluck that fruit off, we'd be able to plant that seed in another way,
Mm.
or we'd be able to do repurpose it, make it a part
Yeah.
of the mulch that then becomes a part of the healing process or the growing process that we fertilize with. But we wait
Yeah.
too late to where it's ultimately destroyed, and the other pieces of our tree, the other parts of our trees are now starting to rot away too.
Yeah, and that's huge because when you mentioned that, I always think of the fruit I buy for the kids in the house. They'll sit in the
Mhm.
fruit bin sometimes too long, and like you mentioned, one
Mhm.
will go bad. It'll start to get some fungus on it, and if it's laying next, touching another piece of fruit that's not rotting yet, it's still good on the inside. But to your
Mhm.
point, that fungus will grow and it'll transfer spirit, and it'll just because that's what the fungus does. It wants to
Yes.
devour all of the fruit or food that it's on,
Mhm.
and it kills a piece of fruit or another relationship prematurely just because, like you mentioned, we don't take good care of it. We don't manage that relationship. We don't pay close attention. We think, oh, it'll be okay. And it just won't be okay in all cases. And
Mhm.
while you were talking, I started thinking about even the aspect from keeping the tree healthy. If
Mhm.
we leave
Mhm.
fruit unharvested, if we don't use
Yes.
our gifts and we don't
Yes.
harvest them, the tree becomes burdened. The tree doesn't grow. Sometimes a tree needs to be pruned. It obviously needs
Pruned,
to be
that was the word. I was
fertilized.
like, yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
it needs to be
Yes.
watered. And sometimes
Mhm.
rainwater, and we live in Southern California. So those who are watching and live in other
Mhm.
states, California has two seasons. It has hot, well, California hot, and you have California cold, and we don't necessarily get a lot of rain, and so the water we pull, yeah, we do steal it from other states. I got you, but it's not stealing because it's contractual. But somebody signed it. It wasn't me, but taking
You
water from
know
other
what?
places. You know what I'm saying? I'm sorry. And I'm
Can't.
not normally
Can't.
political like that. I just kind of threw that in a little,
I
what passive
cannot.
aggressive,
And
what I'm
this
saying?
year we had our own water, so there.
It was okay. All right. So we got our own water. That's a good thing. Big ups to California. But like I say, when we don't care for that tree then cannot produce the fruit that it needs to in its season. It becomes dwarfed. It becomes
Yes.
rotten. It doesn't grow like it should. And we being that analogy of those trees, we need to grow. I want to
Yeah.
grow. I'm tired of being the same little dwarf tree I was.
Mm. Mm. It's interesting because I live in the country now.
Yes, you do.
Um,
Lord,
I tell
yes.
people I'm a city girl, um, with a country heart, and now I'm a country girl with a city heart. No, I love being out in the country, and it's taught me so much, about those cycles and the seasons and how they're changing, and being aware of the water and the weather, and
Yeah.
the trees blow differently out here. Um, the hot is different out here. The rocks serve a purpose out here.
Yeah.
The dirt, the soil matters out here,
Yeah.
and so it's conducive. It's conditioned for growth.
Yeah.
And I remember this last storm that we had. We prepared like we were, having a hurricane because that's what they said. And so, and again, out where I live, the storms feel differently, and than being in the city, and having some different creature comforts or what have you. And so I started hearing that the shift always happens with the wind.
Mm,
The shift of the changing in weather always begins with how the wind is blowing.
mm,
And sometimes in our relationships, we ignore some of those winds that are being coming our way. We don't address things right away. Like you said, we want things to happen organically, but there are
mm.
some conversations that need to be had around, that worked in that season, but that's not going to work for me in this season. The
Right.
winds of change are blowing, and we cannot afford to ignore those signs, because that means that we need to prepare differently for what's to happen on the other side of that. We need to board up windows, perhaps. We need to
Yeah.
gather food, and can food, unfortunately, because it won't perish.
Yeah.
We need to get the propane tanks ready. We need to remove the furniture that's surrounding, like you were talking about the moat that you had once around, your life. We need to remove certain furniture, because if the wind catches it, it's going to blow and torpedo and break a window, an unintended
Yeah.
consequence of not being prepared. We have to change the level of access, a change, and create systems, that support what's happening and prepare us for what's getting ready to happen. And we don't often do that, again, in time with our relationships. We avoid conversations because they're uncomfortable. We don't change access. We don't check behavior in the moment.
Yeah.
And so it puts us in a bad spot for not being prepared for what it is that we're supposed to be doing, or what it is that is supposed to come.
Hmm. That's so huge because when you mentioned we don't check behavior in the moment, because sometimes we don't want to hurt people's feelings. Because I know for me, I've sat in those spots where I can't believe a friend would hurt my feeling by saying that or doing that. And so for me, I've just started just gonna move away. It's like, well, okay, I'm gonna give you one, like, so I'll
Mhm,
give you one, you know,
mhm.
I may give you two, but I'm not sure if I keep giving that third and fourth cheek, because I know the Bible says was to turn the other cheek.
Yeah.
But I'm doing okay. Now I'm being literal now. I'm being, taking
Mhm,
levity with the scripture. It doesn't say
mhm,
how long I'm supposed to leave that cheek out there for you to keep hitting me. You know what I'm
mm.
saying? And then when I turn to the other side, am I supposed to continue to let me hit you? And I get it, and I understand the concept of forgiving our brother. You know, and the 70 times 7 is an analogy. It just means you're supposed to forgive them regardless. And at the
Yeah.
same time, we just need to use wisdom in how we deal with people and take ourselves out of situations that are toxic and not of God, right? So
Mhm,
if our
mhm.
brother doesn't want to reconcile, or a friend, or I mean, I use the term brother being generic, so I'm not trying to be,
Yeah, yeah, I got you.
yeah, what I'm saying, 'cause we know we
I
had
won't
that.
go DNI on you totally, not
Yeah,
today.
yeah, I appreciate you. I appreciate you. It's just you got to have those people. Just we just can't keep putting ourselves out there to be hurt by the same person if that person's not showing that they're changing. But at the same time, we can't totally cut that person all the way out if they are genuinely trying to change, because that means that we're judging them for who they are, and that's not what we're supposed to do either. So it's an interesting line to try to walk without cutting ourselves to death or falling in, you know we won't use that analogy, but anyway, you fall and hurt yourself sometimes dealing with folks who are flawed just like we are, right? We have
Yeah.
done really, I've done some people. No, I haven't done up anybody dirty like that who didn't justify it, so I can't say that. But I know there's some folks out there who've done folks dirty who want to get back. I'm not sure I'm gonna let them back or not, but I need to.
There's a couple things that we talked about, and I'm gonna flash them on the screen
Mhm.
real quick, and then I want to hear your take on a couple of them. So we can't do the
Oof.
work for others,
Yep.
right? A lot of times, I know I've been a fixer in my life, and in the words of Dr. Phil, how's that working for you? But we cannot do the work for others. We,
No.
like you were talking about, sitting in that seat of judgment sometimes um, is also trying to do the work of others because we want people to do what we would do, and some
Right.
people don't have the capacity to do that. Number one, that's not even their job. That's not
Right.
our job either. We need
Right.
to all just respect who we are and where we are in the journey. At the same time, in this process, we tend to take on things that don't belong to us,
Mm,
and that creates a heavy, heavy. I'm full of songs this morning, as y'all can hear and see. But we take on these things that don't belong to us, so then we're carrying our weight, their weight, everybody's weight. I went through a season in my life a few years ago with my family, because my kids were going from teenagers to now young adults, and that transition of when you turn 18 or when you turn 21. And I found myself in the middle, being the coach at home, as I often am. So it's hard to take that hat off sometimes. At the same time, it is not my job. It's not my job to manage my husband's relationships with our kids. It is not
right.
my job to
Right.
manage my kids' relationship with their grandparents. It is not my job. So
Mm-mm.
I was giving people their stuff back. Okay, if you
Yeah.
want a raggedy relationship, as Earthquake says, his dad gave him a raggedy bike. If you want a raggedy relationship with these people, then that's going to be
Yeah.
on you, because I have to do this, because I like to sleep well, and I sleep well because I'm honest, and I share what's on my heart and my mind. I try to do it as respectful as possible, but I sleep very well, and I've earned my snore. So that's another thing. Um, but you had talked about taking ownership of relationships when they turn south, meaning you felt personally responsible for, I'm just going to say it like this, for everybody that you ever had a bad relationship with. um you were kind of taking that on at some point in your life. Tell us more
Yeah.
about that, why you were doing that, and
Yeah.
how was that working for you?
Yeah, it sucked for me. It didn't work out at all. And I used to always think that my relationships went bad because of something I didn't do. I wasn't good enough. They
Mm,
didn't, whatever I was performing for them wasn't good enough for them to love me, good enough for them to
mhm,
respect me and not do me dirty. And when they did me dirty, it must have been my fault. So I had that victim's
mm,
mentality really, really bad.
mhm,
And the funny thing about it, that had not always Well, let me be truthful. Let me go back before you said that. It has been a part of my life since I was very young. When
Mm-hmm.
I used to play piano as a child, and I was accused of not practicing. And so when I
Mm,
wasn't able to plead my case to get the judge to understand that, yeah, no, you do practice with all of the preponderance of evidence. And so it became a thing, I think, at that point, around the between 5 and 7 years
mhm,
old, where if you don't, there's someone
mhm.
key in your life. My father didn't believe when I was telling the
Yeah.
truth. That set a stage there for me, a seed that I must not be good enough because my word doesn't mean anything. So then I
Mm,
started to
mhm.
second guess, third guess, 15 millionth guess what I had to say, because when things go poorly, it must go all the way back to then, that no matter what I said or did, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter because there must be something wrong with me, because if dad doesn't believe me, then nobody's going to believe me. And so I had to get to a point where I knew that my truth was true and I hadn't
Mhm.
done anything wrong and I didn't deserve to be treated as a liar. So as I finally began to get that level of confidence and that self-assuredness together,
Mhm.
and I had to then become okay with people not being around
Mm,
voluntarily or not being
mhm,
around by my choice and not
mhm.
by only their choice. I was able to kind of take the power back in the relationship back to me. And I can still,
Mhm.
I've come to the point now where I can leave the drawbridge down, but that
Mhm.
drawbridge, but when if you follow castles like I do,
Mhm. Yeah, we do.
when you get across the drawbridge, there's still an iron gate that
Mhm.
can be let down. And you
Mhm.
can see people, talk to people, you can even throw sticks at people through the grate, but they can't get in. And they can throw sticks back
Mhm.
to you through the gate. And if they get really ugly about it, you just close the drawbridge up and they're smashed right there between the gate and oh wait, I'm not trying to be violent. Again, I advocate no violence at all,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying when people
Arrows.
exactly, you know what I'm saying? So when people realize that they think that they can come up to your personal space, there's a boundary there. And it's
Mhm.
our
Mhm.
choice of how much further we let them in.
Mhm.
So I have used to let almost everybody in, but I've realized now that
Mhm.
not everybody has the right to have occupancy in my personal space, in my heart, in my
Mhm.
mind. My time is
Mhm.
valuable. It's my time. And so when it's
Mhm.
time for them to leave and it's time for that relationship to be over or
Yeah.
change, whether it be drastically or minimally, it's
Mhm.
okay. So I'm much better with that now than I have
Mhm.
in any point in my life.
Yeah. So going back just for a moment to 7-year-old Craig.
Mhm.
So, I did my psychology stuff. I love it. And how the brain works and what kids are learning and all
Yeah.
of that. And then in the coaching practice, tapping in a little bit of that and how did that grow up with you kind of a thing. But
Mhm.
7 is a pivotal age for kids.
Right.
And so it's the age where you are learning about the difference sometimes between um, truth and lying.
Yeah.
Testing that water. You're learning about stereotypes and generalizations. You're learning about what is real and what is fake. So I don't want to. I don't know how many kids will be listening to this, but the difference. Is Santa Claus real? Who's the tooth fairy? There's still some connection to some of the falsehoods that parents hold on to keep their kids young. But sometimes, in your case, with feeling and believing or told you were a liar based on something that you knew you had done, in most cases, it's the opposites. You're lying about something you're saying you didn't do that you really did do. In this case, you were saying, "No, I did do this," and you're saying, "I didn't." Why don't you believe me? So 7-year-old Craig grows up. What is 7-year-old Craig telling himself at 20, 21? When you start dating or relationships start happening that breed the result of or the outcome that I must be alone in order to, you know, know my truth. What was it that you told yourself? Because that grew up with you.
Yeah, and it's funny you said that because I've said that even here recently where
Mhm.
I'm the only one that I can believe. I'm the only one I can
Mm.
trust. And I've
Mhm.
lived that life for the last decade because that's the only one. Because so many other, and there's a part of me wants to say everyone, and that's not true. But so many people
Mhm.
have left voluntarily
Yeah.
for I look at it as no reason, but they left for a reason that made sense to them. Case in
Mhm.
point, when Sandy was really sick within the last, because
Mhm.
she only went from sick to dead from September of 2012 to buried March of 2013. So that was a very short window. Leading up
Very
and
short.
during that window, there was a lot of help. There was a lot of people. There was a lot of, I don't want to say commotion, but there was a lot of camaraderie. There was a lot of activity flowing around our family. She was pronounced buried and the service was over. The phone stopped ringing, the text stopped coming, the
Chicken,
doorbell
no more
stopped ringing,
chicken.
and right. And I was thinking,
Mhm.
we're still in the same boat that we were when she was sick because she's not here. The difference
Mhm.
is that she's not coming back. Hmm. I
Mhm.
wonder why that was. So
Mhm.
7-year-old Craig came back and was like, well, hey, they didn't come back because it's you. They loved
Mm.
Sandy. They didn't love you. And because
Mm.
you're the only one left, it doesn't matter. No one cares about you. And I want to use
Mhm.
a strong language term there, but they didn't give a hell about you
Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
was her they loved. And I was like,
Mm.
so that took a minute to process through because you can't be angry at a dead person. And and it wasn't her fault for dying. Yet it was her
Mhm.
time. And you deal with
Mhm.
what's left in the aftermath of thinking, okay, I got 5 kids, 4 of them really young, one of them just turned 18. And
Mhm.
these are great young men here that people are really
Yeah.
missing out on. So then I became angry. I mean, really, I became angry about that
Mhm.
because people
Mhm.
were really missing out on their lives. And I had come to the point where I didn't give a care about my life. I
Mhm.
just didn't want anybody to crap on my son's lives. So I find myself
Mhm.
withdrawing them from a lot of places too, because you know what? If you don't care now and their mom's
Mhm.
gone, I know you're not going to care later. So I've become used to that. But I can't remember, one of my kids and I were just talking about this just last week about
Mhm.
how they're starting to rekindle some of these relationships that they've been
Mhm.
without for the last 10 years. And I asked him, so are you happy about that? What do you feel now about these relationships that you're now starting to rekindle? And
Mhm.
he said he likes the fact that they're able to grow them again because he did miss them for the last decade.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
he did say it needed to basically happen this way. Not sure why,
Mhm.
but he's at least thankful that they're growing again and they're being rekindled. And I think at a point now where he's more mature to basically understand and appreciate the value of the loss of
Mhm.
the relationship and
Mhm.
cherish them for what they are. So I think when they were so much younger, I don't think it really mattered to them as much because when you
Mhm.
mentioned their
'Cause they
age,
had you. They had
right,
you. Mhm.
right, yeah. So
They've always had you.
yeah, and I'm glad to a degree, but I wanted them to still have them, them in their
Absolutely.
other relationships. But
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I think
That
it's like
that's
we
a
talked
that's a
last episode.
Mhm.
I think it was like we talked about our last episode, and we said sometimes the craziness that a person has versus what they can do and what's around them. Sometimes we have to say, I don't think I want to deal with that level of crazy to get that. So I started to think,
Mhm.
maybe if there was so much level of crazy with me that they've
Mhm.
chosen not to deal with my sons, but that's okay too.
But there you go.
Yeah,
But that's creeping back into that old mindset
yeah,
that you're the
yeah,
cause of
yeah,
that. And so
yeah,
your personal withdrawing was a choice.
yeah,
And as you matured, as the boys matured, then they were able to make a decision about how they wanted those relationships to change that
yeah,
now serve them in a way and
sure,
serve that other person in a way through conversation, through that reconciliation process that I'm sure will still take time because I posted something the other day about, triggers will happen, but it's your job to to learn how to deal with those triggers, because triggers don't stop. They do
Mm-mm.
not stop. And so there's going to be something that triggers you, that triggers the boys, something that's said that will take you back into that space. But because the relationship has changed and now you have new tools and new coping mechanisms,
Yeah.
you're able to hopefully quickly get to the point where, no, that's not my fault. Yes, I'm triggered by that's
Sure.
fine. I can acknowledge
Sure.
that. But you have the conversation around why you're triggered, or hey, you know what, that was something that used to really set me off last time, but I've learned that da 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 da, or what have you, if you choose to do that. And then again, another boundary reset, access granted, or permission for access to be granted. Then
Yeah.
you're at choice.
Yeah.
You're at choice, and you don't have to focus on so much 7-year-old Craig and how he would deal with that. You now have different experiences that let you know, hey, I was able to overcome this in this situation. That feeds the brain the power to know, okay, I can overcome something else. The faster that we can get to using that past experience as a launching point for something positive in the direction that we want to go, the more we grow and the
Yeah.
quicker we can get to where we're supposed to be.
Yeah.
You were talking about we love medieval movies, like we are Game of Thrones. And we're so sad that it has not come back and how it ended, but that's okay. But also, you remember the movie Troy?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I tell my kids all the time, City of Troy is not burning. Okay, you stubbed your toe. Okay, I know it hurts. Let's see what we need to do. But the city of Troy is not burning, literally meaning because you stubbed your toe, everything around you is now this huge catastrophe, and you got to go into war mode. It doesn't mean that, but the brain doesn't process, just like we were talking about loss, how it doesn't it processes the loss of a physical person through death is the same loss as losing a friend or what have you.
Yeah.
And that's a stress response. We talk about fight or flight and all that type of thing, but the body doesn't know how to respond differently about a
Mm-hmm.
lion chasing you in the Sahara
Nope.
versus this bill or the mortgage that needs to be paid.
Yep.
And so we have to be very much aware of that, in the same way with our triggers and our relationships with people, that just because one person does something and this new person in your life looks like they're doing that same thing, it cannot be the same thing, even though the body is responding, because you're a different person based on that experience you had before, and they are a different person based on their lived experiences, no matter how similar those things are. And we forget that
Yeah.
too, our
That's
relationships.
huge. That is huge. It's all about the brain and our, what do you call it, our perception of the
Mm-hmm.
issue.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to do that, because when we realize just what you said, that there's, our body responds the same way as our brain's job, then it's actually our job in our consciousness to make that choice, to take responsibility of saying, discerning what that's going on. Why is my body feeling that way? Oh, it's this. It's a bill. Settle down, body. Be quiet.
Calm
And keep
down,
it
brown
moving
cow.
so you can.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think we do that enough. If some of us don't do it at all, because I think a lot of us think that, or have accepted the fact that when my body feels this way, I normally have to go lay down, or whatever the self-care that we do to settle that, whether it's a drink or that's drugs, or if it's smoking,
Mhm.
whatever it is to settle that, they settle that, and they pay the consequence afterwards, when realizing that I don't have to do that. I don't have
Mhm.
to have, now, having a migraine is different, having high blood pressure is different, and if your body triggers,
Mhm.
basically, if a trigger happens, it may cause another response. Okay, get it. But there's things that we can do to really bring down those body responses and calm
Mhm.
this stuff down and keep it moving. Last night, case in point, would normally have I had an order come in late from a customer. They asked me to
Mhm.
help them with a memorial that they're going to for a loved one. And I've
Mhm.
got a number of shirts, like 70 plus shirts to print by this afternoon. Well, the
Yeah.
order came. I was preparing the shirts for print, and I was going to print some last night and print the balance this morning. But the customer had sent the wrong graphic. I couldn't print
Mm.
either order. In
Mhm.
my previous mindset, I would have gotten really frustrated and think that today would have been a huge day. I'd have, we would have re-recorded, pushed this recording off. I'd have moved everything. But it's no longer, I had to give myself permission to realize it's not my fault. I can't do nothing for this person. They're going to have to now wait and get on my time, because this is what my life looks like now. And I was able to settle my body down. I haven't had the stressor, well, the stress responses to those triggers, because I didn't want to anymore.
Yeah.
I didn't want to.
You made a powerful point as you were sharing that sometimes people self-medicate. I'll just bunch it all together. And those are things that are outside of what's inside of us. We are not taught that we have what we need inside of us to actually bring that calm. I know some people are like, oh, in African American culture, specifically Black communities, oh, you don't need a therapist. That's you religious. Oh, you need to get on the altar. You need to do that. It's not that those things don't have a place, but breathing and meditation, the Bible talks about that. Keep your mind focused on those things that are pure. That's meditation.
Meditation. Now you're gonna upset the super spiritual people now. Watch out down there. Watch out there now.
That's meditation. That's meditation. And so we can pull up those things that are already inside of us to bring that calm, to bring that resolution, to bring that direction, instead of staying in this spiral that just, it's never ending, because our brain is taking over, not aligning with our heart, but our brain is actually sending us into the spiral because of what we're thinking and what we're saying, and the self-talk, and not focusing on those things that are lovely and pure, that are hopeful, that are joyful, that are peaceful, that are what have you. We go straight to the catastrophe and that city burning down with what seems to be small. And I don't want to minimize anyone's pain or anyone's thoughts. What I want to say is, even in the most devastating moments, if we can tap into that place that's inside of us and just think for a moment that all is not lost. All in this moment may feel like it's lost, but you're still alive. There's still hope that there can be change, that there can be an opportunity for some outcome to be different than the story that we're telling in our own minds.
I love what you said there, and I'm going to put this up on the banner at the bottom. If I can only spell it right. How about if I spell it right? Hold on, let me fix that. It's basically could always be worse. And no matter where we find ourselves in life, whatever we're going through, it can always be worse. And that's one thing I always had to help myself remember, because if we don't think of it that way, we want to always believe that wherever we are at this particular moment in time,
little bit, it's the big one. It's the big one. I'm going out with this one. And another thing is, looking at other people. I was talking to a client 2 days ago, and she was talking about being in the space of gratitude. And it's one thing that I do teach, that, the light will always outshine the darkness. And so one way to bring in that light is through gratitude, sharing gratitude. An exercise that I was doing with her is, and I do with many clients, is tell me one thing that you're grateful for. One person, actually it goes person, thing, and then something that you appreciate about yourself, something that you value about yourself. And so she's been on this journey of gratitude and using some of the exercises that I've learned or modified or gleaned or come up with myself. And she was talking about this experience with 2 different homeless people that she interacted with, and it could always be worse. And in that moment, as she's figuring out, do I give this homeless man a 10 or a 20 or a 5 or nothing? And he goes, oh, you know what? She goes, well, I don't really have anything to give today, but God bless you, brother, or whatever she said. And so he walks away, and she said within herself, she felt like his response wasn't the normal response that she had gotten from a person that might have been in a similar condition. His response was, oh, thank you. Thank you for even considering. I know it's going to be all right. I know I'm going to be all right. And that struck a chord in her. And she looked first quickly, she took out a $10 bill, ran down the street, chased him down, gave him the $10 bill. And in that moment, he said to her, like, basically, God always provides. He now has a job. He's still living on the streets, but he now has a job. And so every day it's like the Lord has been providing for him through someone who, like her, is in that moment. And so I think about how many times we have so much more, and in this case, than a person who was homeless, but he had more than her in that moment. He had hope.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was walking
Oh
the
gosh.
faith, whatever that he needed was going to be provided in spite of his situation. And I think we get that twisted a lot of times because we're driving up to our home. Our kids are safe at school, as safe as they can be. We have an income coming in, whatever that looks like, but we lose hope and we lose faith that in whatever this situation that we're in, it could be worse, and it will be better on the other side of us when we learn on the other side of it, when we learn that lesson, just like your son was saying. His relationships now with these people that he's allowed to access a certain portion of space within his heart, his mind, and his physical space is now better because he appreciates what the loss taught him. He appreciates what that
Yeah.
relationship means, and the value that it can bring in helping him get to that next whatever that is in his life. Not using or manipulation. I'm literally talking about his growth and maturity for how he can now apply this knowledge to a future relationship if it makes sense for him to do that.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because that same son, he went to have dinner with an aunt of his who had and so I was like,
Mhm,
man, are you going to
mhm,
take your brothers to go, eat with her as well? And he was like,
mhm,
nah, no, Dad, no big deal.
mhm.
If they want to
It's
go
about
and
him.
have lunch or dinner or spend some time with her, they can do that. I
Schedule
don't
your
have to
own
do that at
date.
all. He says, but what I am going to do, yeah, he
Mhm,
says, but what I am going to do
mhm.
is I am going to get them to sign this birthday card for her, and I'm going to take it to her
Oh,
while I have dinner with her myself. And I thought, well,
I
that's
love
wild, and that's a huge growth for him because he was that fixer, that the one that wanted to make everything okay. Let's all just get along, but I've noticed some traits of myself in him where he's quickly begun to shed that need for everyone else to be okay at his expense. He wants everyone to be
that.
okay,
That's it.
including
Mhm.
himself, not
Yes.
excluding himself. And that's a
Yes.
place where I'm now learning to find that I like being on that X. I like being on that X. But when I find myself off of that X, I'm
Mhm.
bringing myself quickly back to that place because I know, and I probably should put that up. There's points where we talk about the term getting off the X is a bad thing because it's a spot where there's danger coming. But that also has a
Mhm.
now I'm finding has a dual meaning because an X sometimes it's a spot, X marks the spot where
Where you
you
need
need
to
to
be.
be. And we need to
Yes.
be is centered, we need to be peaceful, we need to be focused, we need to be whatever God is calling us to be at that moment
Mhm.
because his being for us will change, and it does change as we're drawing closer to him. So for this moment, we need to make sure we're managing our relationships if that's for your season. Now, for me,
Mhm.
I believe that should always be a season. We should be managing our expectations, managing our own minds.
Mhm.
And Joyce
Mhm.
Myers has a great book that's called Battlefield of the Mind. And
Mhm.
so many times throughout the day, that's all we are doing is battling in our mind. And if you're anything like me, some days I find out I'm just so exhausted, Shell, by the end of
Mhm.
the day. But
Mhm.
I've been asking myself, I'm not doing any physical labor. I'm not doing anything that's, yeah, I'll stand when I'm printing, but I'm not lifting
Yeah.
boxes after box after box of
Yeah.
shirts. But it's a mental thing where your
Yeah.
mind
And
is doing
emotional.
everything it
Absolutely.
can,
Mhm.
emotional, to settle your spirit, to
Mhm.
keep your
Mhm.
mind stayed on Him of the thing in dwelling on the things like you mentioned before that are good, that are all of those fruits of the Spirit, because I don't want to be in that place where I was before,
Mhm.
when I just wanted
Mhm.
to not care about anything. I want to be in
Mhm.
that spot that's settled and have a blank, peaceful mind like I have now. Not blank when there's nothing to be thought about, but blank because
Ask my
the
husband if he would start
noise.
doing this. I'll have to tell you what that means later.
Oh, yeah. I just love the place where the noise in my head is
Yeah.
finally
Yes.
quiet.
Yes.
So that's where I love to be. I'm excited.
Part of that too, you were talking, you mentioned Joyce Meyer. She's on a podcast or a inspirational thing that I listen to sometimes, and she was talking about the battlefield of the mind and how, if the enemy can capture our mind, just like if he can capture the head, that's why it's so important that you are who you are to your sons, because you're not only the head of the home, but as a boy and a girl mom, but a boy mom first. There's no way I can teach them to be a man, right? And we kind of talked about that. So you're teaching them how to be the head of whatever home that they're going to have, and that's really important. Second thing is going back to Tyler Perry just for a moment. He was also talking about his fear of flying. So the talk that he did was at Joel Osteen's church. You might have seen it. And so he was saying, like, he talked about his journey a little bit of being homeless, and, talked a little bit about, he got to this place and he realized, he also talked about going to seminary school and all of that, but not being really prepared when he did his first message, and how he learned that he wasn't the type of minister that was going to be behind the pulpit, but that he would minister through his creativity. All of that to say, he made the statement, and I wrote it down because it was so profound to me. He said that he was in demand, but he was scared to fly. And a lot of times when we're talking about being on the X, this is what I got from this statement, because just that by itself may not make a lot of sense. But being on that X where you know what your purpose is, you know that there is purpose in what you're going through and where you're going and what's going to happen after this, or what you're believing is going to manifest for yourself, going back to that place of faith and hope, and you're on that X that you're supposed to be in, but you're scared to freaking fly because of the relationships. This is now my take. I'm moving away from Tyler. Because of the relationships that you think you have to sacrifice, or that I think I have to sacrifice in order to fulfill my purpose. The relationships that I should have sacrificed, that I didn't, that I'm holding on to, trying to take these people with me to my destination of my ex that were never intended to be there. And so what am I doing? I'm not fulfilling my full purpose. I'm not walking in the way that I'm supposed to walk, or in the place that I'm supposed to be to that X, or to get in that spot. I'm out of position because I'm scared to fly. I'm scared to let go. I'm scared to shift the access of the people that I do know are a part of that. I'm scared to unlock the door to open up the new person or new opportunity, because I'm scared to fly. But I'm in demand. People need what I'm saying. People are craving. There's a gap. There's a hole that I'm supposed to fill, but I'm not doing it because I'm scared to fly.
I have got to put this on here now, because you just, that was one of those mic drop moments. So my ex is my ex. No one else's. I can't take anyone else to my ex, because that may be an ex they need to get off of. Now,
or a place that they were never intended to be, because there's something else. They helped you to get where you need to go in that moment.
Right. Now, parents like us who have kids, Caitlin's age, younger kids, high school age, that are still living in our household, where they go until they're able to afford to cover their own expenses and be, grown adults and handle their business. I get it. But that has nothing to do with residential and geography in most cases. Now, it does in some cases if they're grown enough to cover, and they know that they're not supposed to move to where you're moving, then they can go find someplace else to move to. But we're talking about mostly here in occupational, vocational, even just your goals and goals and desires, the desires of your heart, or what you're supposed to put your hands to. Just touching briefly on that, there's so often people, we misinterpret the scriptures that talk about the Lord will give us the desires of our heart, and we get excited. We want to fall out and lay in the spirit, because the Lord's gonna give me that.
I don't do that in a Methodist church.
Mercedes. No, I was down the street around the corner I would go down the corner, look at y'all, and I go fall out of my corner, go walk back in. Yeah, exactly. So, there's folk want to do that when the Lord gives them that
Mhm,
Mercedes Benz and all that BMW stuff, because that's what they believe is
mhm,
the desire of their heart. But the scripture
mhm,
actually is to find that the Lord would give you the desire, the work, the vocation, the things that you want to do with your hands, the
mhm.
passion you have to do serving of the kingdom. He'll give you those desires of your heart. And I think the problem is that a lot of folk don't want to work for it, don't want to put in the work to get it done. And don't get me wrong, I'm not that dude that loves the whole thought of getting up and digging ditches, and that's not what my goal is. I'm not a ditch digger. That was not my desire in my heart.
Mhm,
But doing,
mhm.
things with graphics and doing things with clothes, fashion, with things with music, those are things that are desires of my heart. So when it calls for me then to stay up long hours and stand on my feet
Mhm,
because things are being
mhm.
printed and trying to figure how graphics go together, colors and styles and fit go with certain things. Everything doesn't go with a pair of jeans. I'm so
Right.
contrary to popular belief, that's just not the case. And everything doesn't go with black. I don't care what you say, it doesn't. It may
That's not true.
coordinate. Well, I'm gonna say it may coordinate, but it don't go, because if I have a black
That's
pair
true.
of jeans that is cut really skinny with a super pink shirt that's frilly and lacy, that don't necessarily go together depending on what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? Now,
Well, and
I
I
mean,
got one, black stockings and white shoes, so no, don't do that,
depends
ladies,
on the
please.
season. In California, we don't
No,
necessarily have the
never
off-white
do
season.
black stockings with white shoes. That's a no. That is a
No,
no. I had
some
to
of
look
your
at you in your eyes on that one. That is a
now some of
no-go.
your peoples that are on certain occupations that allow them to walk the
No,
sidewalks and the streets that may have a certain creative nature to their social life, they may wear
it's a
black with
no-go.
white.
It's a no-go. It's a no-go. No black stockings and white shoes, ladies. Just I may not be the fashion guru at Fashion Week, although I was there in New York during that time.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't do it, please.
Don't do it. I
Please.
am mad at you. And I'm mad at you. But I'm telling you, just it's just stuff we gotta do better, man. You know what I'm saying? And
No,
do
I
what we're
hear you
supposed to
though.
do. And I think that's
That's the point. And then and also I think we misinterpret that scripture too, because there's a partner to it that we can have those things, those tangible things, the
Mhm.
Mercedes, the Benz, that same car, the BMW. I drive a Lexus, you drive, your hot rod. We can have those things when we do what we're supposed to do by seeking first the kingdom,
Correct.
right? When
Correct.
we are
Correct.
when we are walking in our purpose, then all those other things will be added. When
Added.
when we're
That's
when
the
we're
part.
seeking, they will come, but
Yeah.
they typically may or may not come unless there's. I can't necessarily say this with full confidence for every situation. I know that I was walking in my purpose and doing what I was supposed to do when I got my Lexus, but until I was able to fully afford that, I had to do some investing in order to do that, and walk
Yeah.
in my purpose. Then it was added. Now it's paid for, so I got it and
Yeah.
it ain't going nowhere, kind of a thing. And that's a good point too.
Yeah.
Once you're doing what you're supposed to do, it's yours. You don't have to worry about competing or comparing or worrying about who else is doing something similar to you. I'm a shirt. I'm not a shirt maker, but I'm a shirt that I design shirts. But that is your business. That's a main part of your business.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about me
Mhm.
doing more than you because that's not my purpose. I made some shirts to go with some merch that I wanted to sell. Now that we're partnered, I can go, Craig, I got this design. Can you help me? And then you
Yeah.
perfect it. So
Yeah.
we never have to worry about our position being taken as long as we're doing what we're supposed to do. It's when we're not doing what we're supposed to do that we're in jeopardy of losing that gift or losing. You won't lose the call, but you can lose the gift. Ooh, that's good. Mm,
That's good. And I love what you
mhm.
said, because problem comes in if we don't know our position and we don't know our role.
Yeah.
Because if we don't know what position we're supposed to play, if we don't know where we're supposed to be, we find ourselves out of alignment so much.
Yeah.
And we never fit. We never feel like we know what we're doing. Nothing in life seems right.
Hmm.
But I also want to make sure I throw in there that when we do finally figure out, or if some people already knew what their position is and they're playing that position, it still can have those many days and nights when it's hard, even though we're in that spot, because the enemy wants to make you want to get off that X and and not be where you're supposed to be. So I challenge you, if you are a person that knows that you're in your call, that you're walking in it, that you're not not fooling yourself, not being delusional, and answer the question, are you really doing everything that it takes
Yeah. Yeah.
to get that to come to pass? And if you can say
Yeah.
yes, I still think you're lying, because there's no way as a human that we can do 100% of what we're supposed to be doing. But if you're doing a high percentage and you feel like there's still room to grow, then keep moving and stay on that X. If you know that you're not, and you're become, feel some kind of way that I'm calling you out that you're not doing it, then make the change. Prove that person wrong.
Mhm.
Prove me wrong that, yeah, I'm doing it. See, but don't do it for me. Do it for you. Do it because it's your desire to do better and be in your call. Trust me. I'm going to be doing the same thing too. When we get off this call, I'm going to finish some shirts so I get that printing out of the way, so I get back to the
Mhm.
creation part of where I'm supposed to be to continue pushing my call.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that's a powerful moment too, because none of us are perfect. So that's what I thought about when you said we can never operate 100%. However, we can operate in 100% of the energy that it takes to do that, to
Yeah,
do what we're supposed to do. We're never. I personally, I don't think I'm ever going to arrive. I don't really want to arrive, actually, because then to me that's the end, and that's death. So I'm
mm,
always looking to grow and to perfect my ear, perfect my heart, perfect my mind to be aligned with what I know that purpose is, and that undeniable call and pull and push and all of those things that I
yeah,
feel on the inside of me. I always say my gut never leads me wrong. I want to be able to do all those things, and in order to do that too, I have to have the right mind and perspective about
yeah,
my journey being an individual journey, and it's also a collaborative journey with my family. But if I'm not in the right position, if I'm not doing what I'm doing, there's no way that I can help them to understand or help them to be a part of what they're supposed to be a part of at the
yeah.
appointed time. So those relationships, when they start changing, when they start morphing into more of what they are intended to be, not what we think or desire for them to be, that is a
Yeah.
powerful place to pivot and to recognize, so we can always be in that mindset when those pivots and those changes happen, so we're not missing our X and missing our purpose.
I love that. I think that's a great place to close, because you're really reminding us that relationships are really never going to be what they're supposed to be. In our families are not going to matter as much as they need to be until we become who we're supposed to be.
Mhm,
And because, like you mentioned before, we can't do any work for anyone else. We can't take on
mhm,
anything else that doesn't belong to us. We can only be
mhm,
us, and that's all we're responsible for doing. And so, what we're responsible for as Knight and Craig is to continue to be here for you weekly, right here, and however you pick up the streaming content. We're looking forward to. Whoa, that's funny. That's another project I got to get done for the day, because our thing came off my window, but that's all right. We'll
oh,
be here
well,
next week. Hit us up on our email, Not in Craig. Huh? What'd you say?
oh no, I
I
said,
thought you had
well,
said something. So
get her done.
it's for live
Don't
streaming.
forget, you can
Maybe we'll
reach
edit
out
this
to
one. Maybe we won't.
what.
So maybe I'll
It's
edit
just
that one
such
out.
a
Maybe
moment.
not.
I don't think so. I think it's a sign. Get her done. Um, so reach out to us if you have any comments, feedback, or show ideas or topics that you would love to talk about, or if you want to join us at some point. We would love to hear your voice. Pretty soon we'll have all of our social media up, and you'll be able to hit us up and really follow us and understand what we're trying to do here at Knight and Craig. So until next time.
I came to win, I don't mean to offend. The greatest on the mic, mighty is with the pen. Losing never been a choice, but a line is the same. Ascending, word bending birds, birthed in the gym. Akin to the best, never aiming for less. Opposition so foul, got me calling for rest. Who's next to get bested? Mind, soul, and flesh is antithesis of mess. It's the versus of win. Go long, you better catch a God throwing blessings. Dreams manifested, you get what I mean. God always had a plan, he created for me. Success only means that I did what he seen. Got the game and the fans locked in like a key. Sitting on the